Ready to run?
All right. Hi, everyone. We are back for our fourth and final session on getting organized with your finances with Rachel and Amy. So hopefully you've listened to the first three. If you're not, please go back and listen to those because it does kind of follow along. But we're just going to kind of get right into it and talk about, hopefully, if folks have been following along, they are still tracking their spending, right? Because you don't track your spending for like a couple of days or a week and then be done, right? Does that make sense?
Multiple.
Uh-huh.
It's all about what you're learning about yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And I'm sure you're learning a lot through this process, right? I know
Yeah.
I do when I go through it.
Yeah. Yeah. Tracking your spending, and I say this all the time, is no one's favorite thing. I love to talk about money. I love to do this budget thing. Most people don't even love all that. But I love that kind of stuff. I don't love tracking my spending. It's not the most fun part of this process. But it is probably arguably the most impactful process or part of the process. Because like you just said, Amy, you can really learn not only about what you're spending your money on, but you can learn something about yourself. And you're not going to learn something about yourself if you write down what you're spending for a week or two. And technically, if you're just getting started, you really probably should track your spending for a couple of months at least to get a better understanding. And then you can learn things like, I see here that, when I go to XYZ store, I seem to spend a little bit more than when I don't. Or when I shop online, I spend a little bit less than when I go into the store. And so you can, or, I spend more on my kids than I spend on myself, or I spend a lot on my parents and maybe I should, whatever it is. There's so many things that you can learn about yourself and about your sort of your habits from tracking your spending.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing I want to encourage everybody to do as you're going through this is also be thinking about not what are my habits on a regular monthly basis, just I think a lot of times with spending, people think of like the four walls. Like I've got, my house that I spend on, I've got my car, maybe I have my insurances, groceries, the kind of norms, but also be thinking broader picture, what tools and resources do I need to be aware of that maybe I don't currently have in my tool belt, if you will, right? That maybe you start asking around a little bit, go to, somebody that, you trust is maybe an advisor and say, this is a goal that I have. Do you think what I'm doing currently, do you think that's going to help me get to that goal efficiently? The whole point of this process of the first we talked about organize it, and then the second we talked about having now an awareness, and then we talked about going in now, what do we do with this newfound information? It's each one of those steps progressively. Now we're starting to think bigger picture. Now we're starting to think about things like, hey, I know we've got a roof coming up on our house.
Yeah.
Big expense. I got to be thinking about the whole picture. We've been doing a lot of fine-tune tracking in this series, but then I also want to encourage you guys be thinking about what other things go beyond that simple, because that is an important part. It's not the only part. I think that's one good takeaway to kind of have on that as we wrap this series up a little bit here.
Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, I personally think tracking your spending is the most impactful part of sort of getting your finances organized. And it's not impactful just because of the day to day. It's impactful for the whole picture.
Yeah.
And it can, and it might sound like like I'm just sort of making this up, but I'm not. Like truly tracking your spending can help you recognize some of those small habits, which can actually help you figure out like sort of what maybe you want to tweak and change. And those small habits is what is going to help you reach your big goals. It is going to help you recognize what your big goals are and then help you get there. Like we talked about, I think the first time, or maybe it was the second time, but it's not those huge purchases that are throwing people off, right? It's those little things that we're spending. We're spending $10 here and $20 here and $15 here. And we don't think that that all adds up because we're not sitting down to really look at it in that way. So those are the things that tracking your spending really helps. You know, when you're spending $1,000 on something, you know you've just done that, but you may not recognize that you've spent $1,000 over a week's time from doing a lot of little purchases.
Right.
And so that's why we're doing this, why we're talking about tracking, because that is how you're going to get organized to help you recognize what your habits are and how much of that money is going towards those particular things. And I was on a call earlier this morning and somebody said, anytime you say yes to something, like as far as your time, so you've agreed to do something, you're saying no to something else. And that is exactly what you're doing with your money as well. Every time you spend money on something, you're not spending money on something else. And so this is where you're getting to that point of you're recognizing your habits and you're seeing where you're spending money. And then you can start to make those decisions like, okay, now I know I spend, $300 a month on takeout or going out to eat. And I know that that's $300 I'm not putting in my savings, or I'm not putting towards my new roof that I'm getting or whatever. And then you can make that decision. I want to keep spending $300 on going out to eat, and that's okay with me that I'm not putting it over here, or I would rather be doing something different with that money, and you're going to make some changes. It doesn't matter what your answer is. Your answer could be to keep doing what you're doing or to not. But when you're tracking your spending is when you can make those more informed financial decisions, and then you feel better and more in control because now you know, and you are the one making those decisions instead of just kind of feeling out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and you hit the nail on the head. I was thinking it and then you started saying, and I was like, yeah, I think the one thing that it helps us notice is where our priorities are and where we've put our value. And that's one thing that in the money, it's not really taught. Money, a lot of it is mindset. How are we using it as a tool and a resource? And so all these exercises do play into the mindset of it. And it becomes easier for you to say, maybe it doesn't really do the same thing for me as it used to. And you'll start seeing yourself. Your habits will naturally change because your values will change. Your priorities will change. What you desire will be deeper than those little things, right? Yeah, they won't make sense to you anymore. The $6 coffee at the drive-thru, like, why would you do that? That's insane. And there's people who said, oh, I would never say that, but maybe now that they're doing this type of thing, maybe that shifted a little for them.
Right. And as a reminder, $6 one time is unlikely going to sort of unravel someone's personal finances, but $6 5 days a week, 52 weeks of the year, that could. But so this is why this is why we're talking about this, to really get that understanding of where our money's going. And if we want to continue to do that, or if we want to make some changes. And that's when you can start to think big picture. Like you said, Amy, like, what do you really want to do? Do you really want to go buy coffee 5 days a week, every week? Great. Like, if that's what your goal is, it doesn't matter to me. Yes. If that's important to you. But this is where you can recognize, now that you see the full dollar amount, not the $6, but the full dollar amount that you're spending every month or every year on that, then you can make that decision. Like, yep, totally worth it. Super glad I do that because that's my time. Like, that's my time alone.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Or you can be like, whoa, I had no clue I was spending this much money on this coffee. And I've been trying and sort of spinning my wheels to save up money for a vacation or whatever it might be. And I feel like I'm not doing that. So now I'm going to take a step back and maybe I'm going to go get coffee once a week instead of 5 days a week. But again, I am a huge advocate for you do what you want to do, but you need to be able to make informed decisions instead of just kind of autopilot and just like spending because that's what you've always been doing. And you can't really do that until you fully recognize where your spending is going. So this is why tracking your spending is so important and we keep talking about it. But that is really what is going to get you to the next level.
And sustainable habits. We'll leave it with that. Sustainable habits. These are habits that we can get ourselves into with our money, that they just become part of our lifestyle and who we are. We don't have to be like everybody else. Everybody else is stressed out.
Yeah.
Right? It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, just so much encouragement to everybody here.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's not always easy, but it is worth it. And it's going to make you feel amazing.
Yeah.
As you learn and you grow and you continue to get better in this area.
Right. And I will just say, I just want folks to sort of think
ahead.
about, have I ever tried to, pay off this debt or save a certain amount of money and not accomplish that? And then think, but did I follow these steps? Did I really put together a budget? Did I really track my spending? Did I really think about why this is important to me? And I'm guessing that maybe you didn't. And even if you did, then maybe you just needed that extra support and motivation behind you, like a coach or financial advisor or a friend or a loved one or whoever it is. Can really, like, you sort of need all of those pieces, because it's not always fun, right? It's not fun to say, I'm going to put $6 in my account this month instead of spending it on coffee. Like, that's not fun. But that's why you need to think of like the big picture. And this is what I encourage my clients to do. Your goal should not be to pay off debt or to have $10,000 in your savings. Why? You got to have a why in there, and that will help you build that motivation up. And we could talk about that forever, so probably shouldn't. But if folks are feeling just like still like a little bit like, okay, this sounds great, it's you're kind of making it sound easy, but it doesn't feel easy to me, then that's what Amy and I are here for. So please reach out. And as we've said at the end of our other sessions, if you weren't able to comment or you just didn't hear that, then please comment, get organized on however you're listening to this. And Amy and I both have a free resource that we will be sending you guys to hopefully help sort of keep that motivation up and just kind of help you get started. Anything else, Amy?
I think that's it.
That's it. Okay.
That's
so
perfect.
Yep.
Such a good series.
Yes. And we know it isn't easy, but this is why we're here to try to help and support. So good luck to everybody. Please let us know how we can help, and please let us know what your stories are in going through this process. All right. Well, until next time.